Welcome to the Pitbull Patty Show. This season, we're inviting you to take the Lit Grit Challenge by reading great literature just 1 hour a day, 52 books in 52 weeks to give you the grit you need to succeed. Hey everybody, Patty Stuckler here. Welcome to the Pitbull Patty Show.
We have a special guest today.
Yes, we do. We got Little John. Say hi, Little John. He is our amazing cat that just likes to make appearances. We are so excited today because we're going to talk about personalities, and I'm hoping that you guys are reading, whether you're reading the books we're covering or you're just reading, whatever, suits your fancy. Hopefully some really good nonfiction literature. You get that Lit Grit Challenge going. I know it's hard, isn't it? I mean, it is hard to read every day.
Yeah, I mean, but again, you get into a habit of it, and Rose's parents were visiting this weekend, and I was up early reading before everybody else woke up just so I could get it knocked out. So that was good.
Yeah, and this is Connor, by the way, if you
haven't
watched
tuned in before.
Connor Stuckler, my son. The personalities are so cool, though. I mean, I'm kind of obsessed with personalities over the years. I've kind of gotten, and I know you were not like totally into this particular book. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think in any kind of, especially my job, I deal with all different kinds of personalities. So I think the concept was pretty interesting. Being totally honest, I didn't love this book. It's not really like a book. It was, it's a bunch of bullet points, and I don't know. I just didn't flow like some of these other books do.
Well, I mean, the reason I picked this one, and there's tons of them out there. In fact, this one here, personality types, this is also about the Enneagram. And the Enneagram, just to kind of set the table a little bit, there's lots of different personality types of assessments. Like DISC is one of them, DISC. That's a pretty famous one people like. Enneagram, I would say, is less famous. When talking to people, they're more familiar with DISC. I just like the Enneagram for whatever reason.
It's more specific. There's 9, and DISC is only 4.
No, DISC is actually 16 because you have four. You have 4 quads, and the DISC, like dominant, influential, whatever, compliant. Yeah. So you have the 4, and then you can go within 4 directions in any way, combination. So 16 total combinations, but. So, I mean, it's just, I guess, whatever you like. This one in particular came kind of, I don't know where it originally started, but it was in Britain and then came to the United States in like the 60s. Not to bore you with that, but it's just interesting. And to me, I know you didn't like this style of a book because it was a lot of bullet points and pictures. But, to me, I felt like if we're asking people to read as much as we are, it kind of gives you a break. This is like great bathroom reading and whatever, right? This is not like heavy duty.
Stuff. And I think it's good to kind of have that mixed in to where it's
Hey, the kitty. Hey. No, John, he's climbing up the curtain there. Oh my goodness. So what did you discover about yourself when you were looking at the...
Yeah, I'll be honest, like when I was reading it, I was kind of going through like really trying to figure out what my personality type was. I mean, obviously I know myself, but how I fit in the Enneagram world, and then also reading it, trying to figure out what my fiance Rose was, just to get a little better understanding of her. So.
And I think I was right about what she was right.
Yeah, I think you were right about both of us.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of wavered back and forth between a peacemaker for me and an achiever for me. I think I'm definitely a peacemaker. I mean, I'm an achiever too. Well,
we should lay it out. In fact, kind of explain a little bit more about there. It's 9 personality types. Yeah. And I've read other books on the Enneagram personality assessment. And they give it numbers 1 through 9 so that people don't get hung up on labels. Because if you tell somebody, oh, you're a peacemaker, people are like, no, I'm not. They're like, whatever, or you're a helper, or so this book does give a label, whereas other books don't, they may give you a whole host of labels that it could be so that you have more of an idea. Sure. So you're not stuck on that one thing.
Yeah.
But that's, so everything from a 1 to a 9, and then, what'd you discover about yourself?
I think I was a peacemaker, which is what you had me pegged for originally. I've been achieving so much lately that you thought maybe I was an achiever. But No, with the Peacemaker, I thought it was really cool just because, being diplomatic and then also being able to kind of see all sides of an argument. That's something I'm really, that's important to me and that I stress, within myself, and being able to see other people's perspectives, which is really good. And then with me, growing up in this family with my mom, my dad, and Haley, somebody had to be a peacemaker. So I kind of got...
Why is that?
Got put into that role, and it kind of stuck, and that's I don't know. I don't know if that's what kind of shaped my personality, or that's what my personality type was to begin with, and that's why I kind of
that is super interesting, and I've always wondered that. It's
the nature versus nurture debate,
or which came first, right? The chicken or the egg? Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was your personality kind of already preconditioned when you were born? Or did
I grow up in a hostile environment?
Or did it evolve? Yeah, because actually I am an 8 with a 7 wing, and how it sets up is you have these 9 types, and then each type, so I'm an 8, and if you look at the Enneagram, you'll know what that is, and then there's wings of the 9 or the 7. So, and then there's other complications, but we won't get into all of the other.
You have to read
you have to read it to study
into
it.
The nitty gritty.
Yeah, exactly. If you're really curious about personality types, but an 8 is a very dominant personality, and then the 9 is a peacemaker like you, and then a 7 is what your dad is, which is really somebody who just wants to party. Really, I would say that. I mean, at each one they'll give like a motivating factor. Some of the books will delve into that a little bit more than this particular one if you study this this type of assessment, but where it'll say, okay, I just want to be happy, or I just want to be secure, or I just want to be, that helps kind of sometimes.
Why don't we give them a couple of the examples of some of the celebrities? Because, I know we're pillars in the community, but not everybody may know our family.
Okay, so just to kind of lay out, the 9 types, and just to give them a label, even though I really hesitate to do that, because people do get stuck on that and like, I don't want to be that.
You can fit it to a T, but the label of the number
is what sometimes people get stuck on.
Yeah.
So, but a 1 is a perfectionist. My dad was a 1. And 1s tend to be like really moralistic. A lot of religious leaders like Martin Luther was John Paul II. Pope John Paul II was a 1, a perfectionist. So they see the world.
Hillary Clinton's another one.
Literally, they see the world a little more black and white. They don't have to be religious, by the way, but that tends to be more of a personality trait of, or I should say, personality of somebody who is very religious. But they see the world a little more in very kind of black and white rules, and this is the way things are, and they like things that way, and they're always on time. I mean, they're just like people.
So I'm the opposite of a perfectionist.
Yeah, you're not a perfectionist.
Because everything's a shade of gray, and being on time is,
It's just
time doesn't even exist. It's a man-made concept.
It's inertia. No, I know we were talking about inertia earlier because that's part of
being a 9 is inertia, and everybody too. I mean, and all these things, you're going to have elements that you are of all these different personality types, but you're going to find 1 or 2 that really kind of peg you down. And one of the things with the Peacemaker was inertia, and I was just talking about that with some of the earlier episodes. We were talking about me getting back into the gym, and with me buying a house and getting married, and just trying to have a really good start to this year. I've kind of fallen out of working out 4 or 5 times a week, and it's hard to get back into it. So it was kind of funny
once you slack off.
Yeah. But once you're doing it, it's easy to keep going. So
to go back to just. Otherwise, we're jumping around.
I know.
If we do 2...
I'm a 9.
See, I'm an 8. I gotta, be authoritative. It really helps to kind of know who you are, right? I mean, you can... First off, and just to back up for just 1 second, reason I like personality tests and assessments so much is because twofold. One is to know thyself. I mean, famous, know yourself. Know who you are. Know your strengths. Know your weaknesses. Be cognizant of it. Because then you can kind of keep yourself in check a lot better. If you don't know, then you have no clue. So that's the first reason I really like personality assessments. But the second reason is because in sales, in real estate, it really helps you deal with all 9 types everywhere, all the time. So to understand and be able to communicate with someone the way they prefer or like to be communicated.
Perfect example for the perfectionists, the 1s dealing with engineers. I mean, they're almost always 1s.
Yeah.
And they're very detail oriented, and So just dealing, knowing that that's the kind of personality type you're working with, it can really help you, communicate and speak their language, really.
Yeah, I can spot an engineer from a mile away. Let me tell you, when I'm dealing with somebody and oh my goodness, I can't tell you how many times I've said, you're an engineer, aren't you? And then they're like, wow, how'd you know that? Because they have certain very distinct traits that go into engineering. The way their minds are wired is fascinating. But to get back, so 2 is a helper. That's the second one. Mm-hmm. They're more. They just really they get a lot of fulfillment in helping others.
To bring it back to the book we just read last week, The Tipping Point. Helpers would be the mavens, and what else?
Well,
mainly the mavens.
Well, certainly having a trait of that, and you can have other personalities that, or it could
and
be
just
a wing.
To back up, if you didn't listen to the last one, the mavens are the people who like to have all the information so that they can help people, and that's really what they like to have all that information for.
Mm-hmm. In the
tipping point, Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah,
exactly. We are just like hopping all over the place today. I can feel it. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's all right. Well, there's a lot of different things to discuss.
There is. So the third one is the achiever. Somebody like Bill Clinton. In fact, you were mentioning Hillary Clinton, but Bill Clinton was an achiever. And I don't know, we made a cheat sheet, actually, just a minute ago, just looking at famous people, because that helps. Well, it's the only one I wrote down on there. I don't remember who else was a 3. But a 3 is somebody who...
Muhammad Ali was a 3.
Yeah, somebody who really, they just really like to work.
They're very driven, result-oriented people.
Yeah. So, and that doesn't... And each personality, by the way, each type, you can be an unhealthy, whatever the number is, and you can be a healthy, whatever that number is. So I want to make that really clear, because you could be a really healthy peacemaker, a 9. You could be an unhealthy 9. So, and then people who are unhealthy, depending on whatever the number is, they can tend to, have addictions and lots of other things going on in their life. So don't think that there's one that's, okay, this is a good guy and this is a bad guy or whatever.
Right.
It's important to note that.
Yeah.
That any personality type could be healthy or unhealthy. But a 4 is the romantic, and that's somebody who really likes to be unusual. They really are people who tend to be artists, tend to be actresses or actors. Yeah, people who live on houseboats. They go, they gotta stand out. They want to be original.
They're
that's really, that's their driving motivator. Is they'd rather just practically die than be average. They don't, that
they're weird.
Yeah, they're definitely weird, but they can be quite interesting.
I can say obviously. That Rose is part of.
Well, she's a
5.
She's a
5
probably with a 4
wing.
Yeah. So, and then a 5 is the observer. So somebody who's really they usually tend to be excellent students, like to read. In fact, a 5. Who do I have on here? Let's see, Al Pacino, Einstein. So, I mean, that's kind of gives you a little bit, usually a little more quieter person, I would say.
Not so much extroverted.
They're not going to necessarily go whoop it up, every Friday, Saturday night, right? A 6 is somebody who, what's the label for a 6? Do you remember? Let me see here. Oh, the questioner.
Yeah.
That's Kate. That's my assistant, Caitlin. She's amazing, and she is the questioner. She's got a really amazing way of staying stoic when things are crazy. Like they tend to be in our office sometimes.
Yeah, very
She
much
is
so.
just like the rock. That's the questioner though. So that's what the problem with labels, because you wouldn't know that by the label, the questioner, right? And they're also.
I think of somebody who's like a conspiracy theorist, kind of like myself, and like questions everything and very skeptical of things. That's what I think of when I hear the label questioner.
Well, that's certainly, I would say, a part of a 6 for sure. And they're very safety conscious. They tend to make sure that the doors are locked. The curling iron isn't left on. Those types of things. They can be sometimes OCD, but really can handle emotions well, I think. The adventurer is the 7, which is definitely your dad and my brother. Are definitely adventurer. They're people who like to party, very social, and that doesn't mean that every 7 likes to party. Right. I should say that, because I don't want to offend anybody who's a 7 who's like, hey, I'm not, somebody who's at the bar every night kind of thing. But that does tend to be more of the adventure. They love just making sure. They don't like to deal with a lot of unpleasant things. They want to be really happy all the time. And kind of stuff unhappy things in a corner somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense, doesn't it, with you?
Yeah. And Robert Downey Jr. is a really good example of a famous 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I wrote down... I don't know, I didn't write down. I'm looking at... Who did I write down? I wrote down some 8s and 9s.
All right, well, let's move on to
All right,
8s
so
and 9s.
8s, that's my personality. They're definitely... What's the 8? Is the asserter.
The dictator.
Yeah. Authoritarian. Okay, so some famous 8s are Stalin, Winston Churchill, Napoleon...
Julius Caesar.
Gandhi. Yeah. So, Danny DeVito. So, I mean, it's just an interesting...
Doppelganger.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are people who tend to be very loud, I think, maybe. I don't know. Very leadership-oriented.
Very direct.
But can be bullies, yes. Very honest and direct, but, So, there in every one of these personalities, there's good and bad.
Yeah,
obviously.
Of course.
And then the peacemaker.
Everything's a shade of gray.
Yeah, so the peacemaker like you, so the peacemakers, do you remember? Let's see.
Dalai Lama.
Dalai Lama, yeah. Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln, very, very diplomatic.
Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld. I'm kind of like a crossover between Abe Lincoln and Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
A little bit of Dalai Lama sprinkled in.
Yeah,
That's me to a T.
Well, it is interesting with I looked at my family. I'm obviously one of 7 siblings, and my parents, and I was kind of going down the list of my mom, my dad, each one of my siblings, and we had almost all 9s. There were a couple of repeats, but for the most part, almost all 9 were represented. So it kind of does make it sound like, in some ways, you kind of fill a niche, depends on who you're around while you're being raised, but at the same time, you can take that same personality and then put yourself in, same with like when we were talking about law of context with
the power
with
of context.
The tipping point.
Yeah, yep.
Or the power of context and
it might have been the law of context.
Yeah, so you take that same person, put them in a new context, put them in a new setting with other surrounding personalities, and they can evolve into a little bit something else, or maybe their wings become much more dominant at that point.
Sure.
So it's a fascinating look, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very fascinating. I mean, it's good to know, like you said, know thyself, and then just to, even just in your relationships, like I said, trying to peg Rose was important to me, just because then you get a better idea of how to communicate with them, and what's their likes and dislikes are, and some things like. And again, it's not a one page, blanket thing, but you'll just learn more about dealing with people and best practices. Yeah,
and I remember being in high school and taking one of the Briggs-Myers tests.
Yeah.
And I found that really fascinating, but I didn't think much more about personality, studying personality types until I got into real estate, and I had gone to this real estate seminar down in Florida. This was, probably like at least 15, 16 years ago, long time ago. And I'll never forget, I came home from that weekend or whatever, and we had studied personality types, and it was broken down into 4 groups. It wasn't nearly as broken out.
Is it like the blue ocean?
It was the blue ocean, yeah, exactly, green planet, all that kind of stuff. So I came home basically thinking I would say, if you were looking at the Enneagram, like a helper or a peacemaker, something along that line. A blue ocean would be akin to that. And so I came home like discussing that, and everybody was like, "What? Like that is not you. Like I don't know how you see yourself that way, but that ain't you." So I had to really take a good look at myself and realize, wow, that was not how I saw myself, was not necessarily how the world saw me and how other people saw me, my family members in particular.
You got to crowdsource it, figure out what you are. So that's a good point too. You can buy this book and then share it with some of your friends and family, and then kind of see what they think and versus what your own conclusion.
Yeah, and if you don't like bullet points and you want something more in depth than Conor, get this one. This one on personality types is also a good one. And it's on the Enneagram, and it gives a lot more. It's tons of, but you need to have some time to read that one.
Yeah.
It's not going to be something you can do quickly and, in a hurry. But we figured we'd give you a little break on,
reading so much.
Heavy reading.
Yeah, and this is something you can skip around with and, read certain number, personality types, and, that's certainly what I did. I skipped around a lot.
Yeah, so we definitely encourage you to, figure out, like, what your type is. Who are you, right?
That's right.
Right. So you can kind of temper the bad edges and really play up your strengths and hopefully talk to other people with a little more understanding of how their brains are wired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
a really fascinating look. So let's talk real quick while we're wrapping it up, because this is kind of a brief one. We're going to be talking about The One Thing. Boy, this book's got a little bit of age on it. I can see it's not the cleanest, but it's been read, and I'm going to reread it, in fact, within this next week. And I know you've already read it. But this is a book by Gary Keller, and it's got a co-author. But, you know, it's just
and Gary Keller's one of the co-founders of Keller Williams.
Yeah, which we're RE/MAX agents, so we're not trying to promote, Gary Keller per se or Keller Williams, but it's a great book. It's really, really, and I think it's a pretty simple book. I read a lot of this on a flight. I think I was going to Vegas or coming back from Vegas, so it was a long flight. It was like a 5.5 hour flight, and I read pretty much the whole book in that amount of time. So, depending on how fast of a reader you are, it's really not. You can read it in probably a few hours.
Yeah, it's an easy read. It's an easy read, but it's good. It's good material, and I think it really builds on some of the other books we've read, especially like the Power Habits and Goals. So it fits in really well with both of those books.
Yeah, so check that one out, and don't be intimidated if you're really not that big of a reader. It's a pretty easy read, and it's going to be fun to talk about that next week. So hopefully you're enjoying the Lit Great Challenge and getting something out of it, and we just want to keep encouraging that. And if you're not into video like this, we do a lot of the videos because a lot of people are into videos, and that's why we do it. I would prefer to just do the MP3, which is what I started in my podcast originally, only doing the audio, which is in iTunes, so you can look up the Pitbull Patty Show in iTunes and listen to it in your car, instead of the radio or whatever, or while you're working out or that kind of thing. But it's only the audio version, so you can do it either way. And hopefully that'll encourage you to get some grit through Lit.
That's right.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.